Alright, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about why I put 120 plus hours into God of War. It's very rare, to not say unprecedented, for me to play through a single player game more than once. It's definitely unprecedented for me to play through a single player game 3 times and to have over 100 hours in a single player game. That's unheard of for me. The closest two I have are Sekiro Shadows Die Twice and Horizon Zero Dawn. And Sekiro is one of my favorite games of all time, but I did not feel like playing through that game more than once. I felt burnt out when I finished it, and I had no desire to start up a new game plus. I will probably play through the game once more sometime in the future, but I did not feel like doing that at all after my first playthrough. My first playthrough of God of War was at Give Me a Challenge difficulty, and it was the perfect difficulty for a first playthrough for me. I'm not that big on games with a good story. I generally don't care about the story. I want good gameplay, combat, and difficulty. And that's why I did not pick one of the more sort of story-focused difficulties. And had I picked Give Me God of War as my first difficulty, I would probably have been burnt out after the first playthrough, since it would take so much time and it would be so frustrating to play at that difficulty without having the power that comes with a new game plus. But I was still kind of certain that I would not start a second playthrough of this game after completing the story. I was maybe going to do all the side quests, but that was about it. Then I discovered the Valkyries. The Valkyries are by far the biggest reason why I stuck with this game for so many hours. They are endlessly addicting and pose a very good challenge that feels rewarding and fair. The build-up towards the crescendo that is Sigrun is perfect as well. You have fought all the Valkyries with their very limited movesets, and now it's time for the ultimate test. A Valkyrie that combines all the movesets from the other Valkyries and then some, and her health bar is so ridiculously wide that you can't really grasp it. And when I first beat her on my Give Me a Challenge run, I knew I had to beat her on the hardest difficulty. There was no doubt in my mind. I could endure the entire story again just to get a chance to fight her on Give Me God of War. And that leads us to the second reason why I put 120 hours plus into God of War. The ability to change the difficulty. And this might sound very rudimentary. Don't all games have this option? Well, yes, most games do have some mechanic that can alter their difficulty in some way. But not all games have the change difficulty option in the menu. In FromSoft's games, for example, you usually have to take some sort of action in the game that alters the difficulty. For example, in Sekiro, you can ring the bell and get the bell demon. And I've never been a fan of this sort of abstract difficulty change. I want a concrete thing. I want to be able to say that I beat the hardest boss on the hardest difficulty. And this fueled my fire to start my second playthrough. And I got the ultimate reward after I beat Sigrun on Give Me God of War. And this fight took me an insane amount of tries. And it was the hardest boss I've ever fought. She was more difficult for me than Ishin the Sword Saint from Sekiro, for example. And it was just something about her moveset that was very hard to read and react to. And her health bar, as I said earlier, that's just insane. And you had to play perfectly for so long to beat her. I think my first fight took like 6 minutes or so, even with 2 pieces of the Zeus armor. But then when I finally beat her, surely that would be the end of my God of War career. And this is where the third and final reason why I put 120 plus hours in God of War comes in: the Zeus armor. This incredibly powerful armor upgrade that makes you hit harder than Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, but that also makes you extremely susceptible to damage, had been teased during my first New Game Plus run. You receive 1 piece from Gondul in Muspelheim, and 1 piece from Hildur in Niflheim, and the third and final piece from Sigrun herself. For each Zeus armor piece that you wear, the damage given and taken becomes substantially higher. And wearing all 3 is exponentially better than just wearing 2 pieces. And since you get the last piece from Sigrun herself, you kind of have to play the game a third time to be able to use the Zeus armor. And this is the third and final reason why I put 120 plus hours into God of War. The ability to use this full Zeus armor set is what fueled my third playthrough, and boy, it did not disappoint. I felt extremely powerful. And this is a feeling I love in games. The feeling of being overpowered. And this is what equipping the full Zeus armor gave me. But at a fair price of basically being one-shot by every attack in the game. So it didn't really make it that much easier per se, just a lot more fun. I just knew I had to beat all the Valkyries with this build. And I would lie if I said that it did not feel great to absolutely melt these foes that had given me such trouble on my previous playthrough. There are of course many more small reasons as to why I put this many hours into this game, but these are the 3 biggest ones. The Valkyries, the difficulty change, and the Zeus armor. So since I'm pretty much done with God of War now, what will I be playing next? Well, I will be uploading a video shortly about that, so stay tuned. And until then, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.